We're bringing back the Q&A sessions from here inside the Big Tire Garage, and as always, if you ask your question in the comment section below and I choose it for a future video, you will get a discount code to use on the Big Tire Garage merch site that you can use to get either a free sticker pack or a bunch of money off of a t-shirt. Now today, I'm answering 3 questions that were asked by a pile of people on my last few videos. So the first one is, why am I not going to get bump steer by moving the drag link from the bottom of the knuckle to the top of the knuckle on my Jeep JK? Why has my Nissan Titan been so good to me when a lot of people have had bad luck with theirs, and why I think that truck has actually gotten a bad rap in the truck world? I think it's a good truck. Some people don't. And lastly, why does GVWR mean absolutely nothing in the world of custom truck building? But before we get to those questions, let's hear from today's video sponsor. Today's video sponsor is Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN service or virtual private network that allows you to protect your personal data on all of your devices, as well as change your device's location or IP when you access the internet. Using a VPN if you travel a lot is essential because it allows you to protect all of your personal data if you ever have to log on to questionable Wi-Fis. If you travel internationally, quite often there are better deals to be had on flights, hotels, and rental cars if you're accessing the internet from the country that you plan to travel to. But if you want to check out those deals ahead of time, you can simply use Surfshark to access the internet from that country and see what deals you can get. Plus, with more and more of us transitioning to some type of online streaming for our television, there's a lot of geographical guardrails that are being put into place. You can remove all of those by simply using Surfshark's location service and just change your country of origin or even a location inside your country to remove those guardrails. I get asked all the time by my former Canadian countrymen, why can't they watch my Discovery Channel shows in Canada on Discovery Channel streaming? And I give them the same answer every time. Simply get a VPN service like Surfshark and all of those problems will go away. You can get 4 free months by using the link that I'm going to put in the description below. And Surfshark is a no-hassle sign-up because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Trust me, get yourself a VPN service like Surfshark. It'll keep you safe online and open up a whole new world of entertainment. Now, let's get to these questions. The first question was asked by a lot of people when I posted this video right here. It was basically building the ultimate JK Dana 44 front axle to run 40-inch tall tires off-road. And in the process of building that axle, I installed a set of aftermarket knuckles that moved the drag link from the bottom side of the knuckle to the top side, creating what's essentially referred to as a drag link flip. And a lot of people commented that I was gonna have bump steer because now my panhard bar and my drag link are not parallel to each other. And that is a misunderstanding of what causes bump steer. A lot of people think that if you just make those 2 rods parallel, you won't have bump steer. And that's not what causes bump steer at all. It's actually caused by the arc that those 2 items swing at as the suspension cycles. And what I have here is a simple diagram that we can use to understand what causes bump steer in a solid axle suspension. In this sketch right here, this is a pretty simplified version of what you're going to find underneath the front end of a solid axle vehicle. We have 2 tires. We're looking at it straight on from the front. These are our 2 frame rails. This is our drag link right here, and this is our panhard bar right here. Now, as the suspension cycles up and down, what happens is the drag link is going to move in an arc as the axle moves up and down. That arc is actually determined by the location of this panhard bar because, as I said, it is fixed to the axle and to the frame. These 2 arcs need to travel in the same, basically, swing as the suspension moves up and down. You can see here that what is happening as the tire falls away from the chassis, the arcs are getting too close together right here. What that's going to cause is the panhard bar, as I said before, it can't move, so the axle doesn't move. but the drag link wants to stay at the same swing. So what it's going to do is it's going to push the tires away as the suspension moves. As it pushes the tires away, it's going to move the pitman arm. That is what's going to cause bump steer. Some quick and easy math to help you determine if these mounting locations are in the right spot is the distance between the drag link mount on the axle and the panhard bar mount on the axle need to be the same as the distance they are on the frame side, at the steering box and on the outside of the frame. And you can see with just a quick look right here, these two distances are not the same. You can also see that if you simply took the drag link and changed its mounting location from under the knuckle to over the knuckle, it's not going to change any of the suspension geometry inside the axle because we haven't changed the swing. So if we simply move this drag link up, we will be fine. We will not get bump steer. Now, if at the same time, could we move the panhard bar up? Absolutely, we could, as long as we ensured that the mounting location did not move either closer to the drag link or further away from the drag link mounting location on the axle. So, by understanding how these two items work together, the drag link and the panhard bar, it's easy to see that it is not the fact that they are parallel underneath the truck. The important thing is that they travel in that same arc as the suspension moves. That is what causes bump steer, and that is why by simply raising the drag link up from the bottom side of the knuckle to the top side of the knuckle, if you didn't have bump steer before, you're not going to have it now. The next question involves my Nissan Titan tow rig and how I plan to turn it into a custom Toverlander project that I explain why in this video right here. Now, a lot of people were questioning why I'm using the Nissan Titan for the base of that project, and it's explained in that video. But at the same time, there was a lot of comments about how the Nissan Titan and the 5-liter Cummins were just a bad package from the factory because apparently a lot of people had a lot of trouble with those trucks. Now, my experience with the Nissan Titan is completely different. As of this morning, I have 257,896 miles on my Nissan Titan. Now, I've had to do some minor repairs to it throughout the 9 years that I've owned it, but nothing huge. I think if I was to average it out over the entire life of the truck, I've probably spent $1,000 a year on that truck to own it, which is actually not that much for a used vehicle, especially with that many miles. So, why do I think the Nissan Titan got a bad rap? This is a perfect case of bad marketing. I think Nissan made the mistake of simply only offering that truck as a crew cab, short bed pickup truck, single rear wheel, right out of the gate. Because then what they had to do was be incredibly honest about the towing capacity and payload capacity of that truck, which a lot of people questioned because they weren't comparing apples to apples. The towing capacity of the Nissan Titan, the 2016 XD diesel, is actually almost the same as the towing capacity of the same Ford F-250 diesel crew cab, short bed, single rear wheel pickup truck. There's only a difference of about 500 pounds in towing capacity between the two vehicles. But because Ford also builds cabin chassis trucks, dual rear wheels, when all their marketing materials say that the Super Duty Ford can pull 20,000 pounds. That's what they were advertising back in 2016. So most people equate a Ford Super Duty as a 1-ton truck, no matter what model you choose. Whereas the Titan was right out of the gate considered underrated and therefore not as good of a truck. I also think what happened was, because that Titan was considered underrated, it wasn't being sold to people who were buying 3/4-ton pickup trucks. It was being sold to people who were coming out of gas trucks and just looking at the 5-liter Cummins Titan as an alternative to their gas truck, and they kind of treated it like a gas truck right out of the gate. Diesel trucks, in my opinion, are very different to own than a gas truck. I started my career as a heavy truck and coach technician back up in Ontario, Canada, working on large displacement Cummins and Cats and Volvo white GMC over the road or on highway tractor trailers. And I've always sort of treated any diesel that I've owned the same way. That means that preventative maintenance for a diesel is key. Yes, do diesel engines routinely get 1 million miles? Absolutely. But to get to that kind of mileage, you have to really maintain the truck. That means treating it different than a gasoline truck. So I think what happened was people were buying this Cummins diesel and they weren't really treating it like a diesel. They were kind of treating it like a gas truck, driving it 5 or 6 miles a day back and forth to work, not letting the diesel engine actually get up to temperature, do its job, no load on the engine, and probably not paying attention to the maintenance side of that truck, and therefore they had a lot of problems. Now, I'm not saying the truck is perfect, but no truck is. But any diesel truck with proper maintenance, in my opinion, can last a long time. So what does that mean if you own a diesel truck? Well, to me, that means that you really need to stay on top of all of that preventative maintenance, and even more so when you get up into higher mileage. That means making sure the oil change is done on a regular interval. So for my Titan, it's every 10,000 miles, and I run a very good oil and filter in it, not the cheap stuff that you can just pick up at a discount. I always make sure to put a good oil filter. I also send the engine oil out for analysis probably every third or fourth oil change just to get an idea of what's going on inside the engine. After 100,000 miles, I think you should add some type of oil treatment or additive to that engine as it gets up in age. Also, fuel filters. The most important thing you can do to a diesel is change the fuel filter. So every oil change, 2 new fuel filters right out of the gate, and I pay attention to how much fuel I keep in my tank, especially as the weather gets cold, because I don't want any condensation or water to get into the fuel system. That's a killer for any diesel truck. Adding a fuel treatment or additive to the tank, I do that probably every 5 or 6 tanks. So that's going to be about 350 to 400 gallons worth of fuel through the engine. I'll add a Rizlone diesel injection cleaner and fuel treatment just to make sure everything is taken care of on that end. Air filters. Air filters, in my opinion, are probably the most overlooked item in a diesel engine. And if I'm traveling somewhere where it's super dusty with my tow rig, like when I go into King of the Hammers, I ensure that I bring an extra air filter with me because you're just in that dust for so long. I change it before I come back. I stay on top. I probably change the air filter every other oil change. That's 20,000 miles on an air filter, max. If I'm in dusty conditions, I'll replace it more often than that. These are things that you have to pay attention to. My Titan is not deleted. It still has all of the factory emissions and after treatment that it left the factory with. I am not a proponent of deleting a diesel pickup truck. I think that you don't need to necessarily do that to get it to last the miles that you want it to last. And plus, sometimes it can cause more headaches than it's worth. I travel a lot all over the country. And more often, I'm hearing from other diesel truck owners that something happened to their truck and they tried to take it to a shop in a different state, and the shop refused entry to the truck because the emissions items had been removed. And the shop is just protecting themselves. So I absolutely understand. I also don't think that you have to delete it if you just maintain it. Just like I treat my engine and my fuel system with additives from the aftermarket, I do the same thing with my emission system. I use a DEF treatment from Rizlone that prevents crystallization inside the DEF tank as the water evaporates. That just gives me a long life for the tank and the nozzles and all of the lines. At the same time that I'm adding my fuel treatment to the tank, I'm also adding a DEF treatment and SCR cleaner. So when the truck goes into regen, it'll help clean out that entire after treatment system and keep it running like new. I firmly believe that if you take care of your diesel pickup truck, 1 million miles is definitely attainable no matter which diesel engine you choose. I hope you follow along on my Toverlander project because I think you'll see that when it's all said and done, it was the right truck to use for that build. this final question is definitely a hot button issue for a lot of people based on the number of comments and or questions I got through either YouTube or social media, once again, all around this video right here, my custom Toverlander project. And it all revolved around the term GVWR and the gross vehicle weight rating of the Titan and how it's not going to work for what I'm building and I should choose a different truck. And I'll address that as we build that truck. But I'm going to go right now on the record and say that in the world of custom truck building, GVWR means absolutely nothing. So let's start with what GVWR is. GVWR is the gross vehicle weight rating, and that is a number that is assigned by the manufacturer to your vehicle. Now, GVWR means that it is the total weight of the vehicle, and everything that you put in it or on it cannot exceed that number. Now, GVWR is the number where you start with, and then to determine the payload capacity of your pickup truck, you subtract the curb weight of the vehicle, and what's left is what you can put in or on the truck. So pretty simple math there, right? You basically have total weight, weight of the vehicle, everything else you can put in it. And in a world where you just jump in that truck, drive it away, and leave it stock, it's fine, makes perfect sense. Where the math doesn't math is when you start modifying the truck. So here's some numbers that I'm going to throw at you. We're going to compare two identical trucks, essentially identical trucks. Both are F350s, both are crew cabs, both are long beds. One's a dual rear wheel truck, one's a single rear wheel truck. So the dual rear wheel has a GVWR of 14,000 pounds. It has a curb weight of 8,085 pounds, so therefore a payload capacity of 58,050 pounds. The single rear wheel has a GVWR of 11,400 pounds, curb weight 7,692 pounds, and a payload capacity of 4,587 pounds. So fairly close, except there are some slight differences there. Now, why does this not matter if we customize the truck? Well, here's why. Let's say you bought that single rear wheel long bed Ford F350, and after you bought it and you've driven it and you'd enjoyed it, you decide that the toy hauler that you bought, you would feel more comfortable if your truck was a dually. But you don't want to go out and buy a whole new truck, especially since after doing some research you realize that these F350s are identical. Like most modern vehicles, when it comes to models, a lot of them use the same parts. So F350 dually, F350 single rear wheel. It's going to be the same frame, the same suspension, the same axle, the same brakes. Essentially, the only difference between these two trucks is the fact that one has 4 tires and wheels on the back and one has 2 tires and wheels on the back. So you make the right decision for you and you decide, okay, I will go and buy a set of dual rear wheels and install them on the back of my single rear wheel truck. Surely that will raise my payload capacity because I've added 2 extra tires and wheels onto the back of my truck. But you are actually absolutely incorrect because, as we said before, payload capacity is determined by taking the curb weight of the vehicle, subtracting it from the GVWR. You can't change the GVWR on your truck. So your curb weight has actually gone up because you just added more weight to the truck. You've added 2 more tires and wheels. Therefore, whatever those tires and wheels weigh, let's say it's 300 pounds, you now have to subtract that from your payload capacity. So now the payload of your capacity goes from 4,600 pounds down to 4,200 pounds. And that's going to happen to everything that you do to that truck. If you add some sort of additional load leveling leaf into the back or an airbag system with the goal to raise your payload capacity, which you're actually doing, you are increasing the amount of weight you can carry by using parts from the aftermarket, you're actually lowering your payload capacity because of the fact that you are adding weight to the truck. You're adding curb weight. Now, in commercial vehicles, this is completely different. In the world of commercial vehicles, GVWR can be changed. In an over-the-highway truck, if we needed to change the GVWR, we could extend the frame. We could add a tag axle to the back. There's lots of things that you could do, and then your vehicle would be re-inspected and assigned a new GVWR, which would then change its payload capacity. But in the world of RVs and privately owned vehicles that you're just driving yourself or modified trucks, changing your GVWR is not that easy. And in some states, can't even be done. My state, a privately owned vehicle cannot have its GVWR changed even through an inspection system. It just can't be done. So that is why in the world of custom truck building, gross vehicle weight rating means absolutely nothing. If you just use your common sense when you're modifying your vehicle, you know what's going to increase its payload capacity and what's going to decrease its payload capacity. Taking a single rear wheel truck, turning it into a dually, it's going to increase its payload capacity. That's just going to happen. Does it do it on paper? Absolutely not. And that's why the math sometimes doesn't math. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed these questions. If you have a question for me, make sure to put it in the comment section below. I'll answer it. And as I said before, if I choose your question for a future video, you could get yourself a free sticker pack or a discount on a Big Tire Garage t-shirt.